Hello and welcome to The Price of Time, the show where we explore the defining moments that made people who they are today and the impact of those moments over time. Here's your host, Luke Tatum. Hello again and welcome back to The Price of Time. I'm your host, Luke Tatum. Today we are joined by Rob Brayton. Rob is a husband, father, and a seeker of personal growth and freedom. He is also a member of my team at Perfect Spiral Capital, and I couldn't be more excited to have him on the show today. Rob, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, excited to chat with you a bit more. This is a bit more of a surprise episode for me personally. I don't know exactly what all we're going to get into. As I mention often at the beginning of these shows, I like to do a pre-show with the guests, and I like to learn just a little bit about what we're going to get into before we start because, I want to know kind of where we're going to go, make sure it's going to be a good episode. But Rob, you and I talk all the time. And so this is a little bit more of a, let's just go for it kind of a thing, and it's going to be more fun. So I know only the smallest inkling of kind of what the topic for today is. And so let me just kick it over to you. What are we going to talk about today? What's your one defining moment that we're going to isolate and hone in? I know you've got more than one, but what's the big thing for today?
Yeah, well, when I was trying to think about one defining moment, I think it's always really difficult. So if you think about it, I did send you three, but at least for today, we wanted to hone in a little bit on more so from a financial perspective of where did things really change for me and how did I kind of end up on the team? And that's what I wanted to hone in on and maybe help people understand a little bit more about. But as far as that one defining moment, I think anytime you're trying to talk about one particular area, I feel like context is always king. In that understanding what's sort of leading up to these moments in our lives. And I think that can be really challenging when people think about, well, what is this one defining thing? Sometimes it's very simple and it's very straightforward. Other times it's not. And I would say in my situation, that's why I've kind of arrived at three. But in this particular case, I, much like you in some respects, I have routines myself. And one of those is I tend to read, or I wake up early and I tend to do a lot of listening to podcasts. And while I work out, I feel like it's a good use of time in two different ways. One, it's challenging me mentally, and the other is challenging me physically. So in this particular case, it was in January of 2023, I happened to be listening to Tom Woods, and I'm hearing this guy talk about these things that I had personally been experiencing in my financial walk. And I'm like, what does he know that I don't hear? And then not only that, he's talking about a solution in a way to potentially escape some of that. And I was completely blown away and curious. So that's when I started to dig in more. And as it turns out, I bought the book that this gentleman was talking about, and that just happened to be yours. So it was, and this is probably where it's a little bit of a surprise for you, because I know you weren't expecting me to say that, but I would say that it wasn't so much that it was what makes it truly a defining moment wasn't so much that it was your book per se, but it was what kind of was taking place up to that point. And if that's okay, I can go into that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for you to rewind a little bit, Rob, and just sort of talk about maybe what the situation was, because everything in life is is, well, as far as a defining moment goes, it's always not just the thing, it's the thing in that time, in that place, in that way, right? That makes the impact. And so, you know, that's why marketing and stuff is so important, because it's like, well, maybe you're just not saying it the right way, right? You might have the best message in the world, but if you're not presenting it, then it may fall on deaf ears, and so I'm uh, humbled and very, thankful for, you to say that I did a decent job presenting an idea, but yeah, I mean, if you would just kind of like, what is the stage that I guess, what was the setting? What was the setting that led to that being such a good moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think about it, I I've always been involved or interested in the financial world in some way, shape, or form. And this goes all the way back to when I was even a kid. I used to watch the evening news after afternoon cartoons got done with school. And I'd watch the news and I would just kind of make mental notes of stock prices and things like that. And which sounds weird, but I'm maybe different in some respects than other people too. But anyway, I just kind of made mental notes of those things growing up. And then as I continued to get older, my interest kind of grew a little bit more. In one of my current events classes we did in high school, we did spend some time digging into stocks and things. So that, again, kind of piqued my interest more. And then my parents had always I come from very humble beginnings. So my parents had always said, try to save something for yourself, try to pay yourself first. And they didn't really know how to do that or have the tools to tell me how to do that. So a lot of it was self-discovery. So I spent a lot of time reading, spent a lot of money on different investment newsletters that I had found over the years. And some of them were very good. They were very successful. Some of my actions that I took as a result of doing some of that investing was fairly good. Others, maybe not so good, but that's how we live and learn. But I always knew that I didn't want to have someone else in control of my money and paying somebody to do a job that I felt like I could do if I just gave myself or, took enough time. But I did all the traditional stuff, reading Benjamin Graham's book, Warren Buffett's mentor, and taking all this time to really understand the market and all of these different things. And so that's all through my 20s and into my 30s. And I fast forward and I'm, it's not a midlife crisis, but it was, in my 40s and I have 5 kids. I have a home and everything. And I'm like, if this stuff was really working, shouldn't I be farther along? I've put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot into this. Something's not right. And as a man of faith, my first thing is I just took that to the Lord and I said, what? Something isn't right. I need guidance. I need something here. And that was probably, like anybody around the holidays, you're spending a lot more money than maybe you usually are. And it's not that we had a problem being able to do it, but it was one of those things where it's like, there's got to be something more here. And I, at the same time, for probably the better part of 3 to 5 years, I'd really just been seeking the right type of career because I never quite felt satisfied in what I was doing. And I had been like I said, I spent a lot of time in prayer, and a lot of this was happening through the month of December. And this podcast comes on and I start hearing from you. We did an initial meeting. I actually looked back on it today because I wanted to have my dates right. And it was January 23rd of 2023. And it was after that meeting that you had also challenged me to read Becoming Your Own Banker. And I think that book combined with yours are what truly opened my eyes that this wasn't just a situation where I found it. It's that I feel like I was being led in this direction. And especially with knowing how strong of in his faith that Nelson was, and then reading how he had structured things within Becoming Your Own Banker, it felt like home right from that point. Even though I wasn't, I didn't know that I wanted to be in, sell life insurance with Perfect Spiral Capital. Like, I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do yet, but it was at least in the back of my mind, because I was time for me to do something different. And this was my ticket to try something different. And as you and I have discussed a few times, the my first toe in the water wasn't all in, but it quickly turned into that shortly thereafter. Once I got to understand just how powerful and impactful it can be, both short and long term. And it just aligned so well with my faith and my goals that I had for myself and my family ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, so that's awesome, man. This is gonna sound weirdly self-serving in a couple of spots, right? Because like I want to dig in a little bit more, but it's
Yeah.
not because I want to hear about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I want to hear your perspective on things. And so you hear this podcast. I mean, obviously you're listening to podcasts day in, day out, when you're doing your exercise and all this. And so if you don't mind, I mean, what was it like? If there was there a particular thing that you're like, just blew your mind? And again, I feel weird asking this question, but is it was there a particular thing that you said, okay, that's it, I got to do this, or was it more just okay, the episode's over and you just sort of absorbed it all, or I mean, what was that like?
Yeah. Again, very good question, because it's made me really think about that particular point. And, as I'm listening to it, there was a couple of times when I actually stopped and I backed it up and said, what did he just say? Because I wanted to make sure that I heard what I was hearing. I'm like, in your, when you were talking to Tom about this stuff, and really just outlining that what we've been sold and what we've been told all of our lives from every facet about what the financial system is, it's quite literally nearly the opposite of everything that we're told. And I'm like, that sounds true to me, because I've lived it. I have spent all this time, all this effort trying to really become an expert and manage and do what I should. And it's not doing what it claims to do. And can it do that? Sure. But you have to get lucky. And I think that's the hard part, in that you have to really, like, if you're going to try to do something in just the stock market, yeah, you can play those games. But there's only like, maybe upper 1%. In an up year, you have 5% of companies that might outperform the whole market. I don't like the fact that I have to guess which ones those are going to be, because you don't always know. And if you can track stuff, you can have a good idea and you can hone in on a given area of the market, and it can do well. And like I said, I had some success doing it. It's not like it was an utter failure, but each time you have a success, you're also going to have a loss. You can't be perfect all the time. And the market it's not guaranteed to always go up. And I think that's the biggest thing that, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking the long way to answer your question here, but I think that when you understand that true compounding only happens when it goes up all the time, uninterrupted compounding, I think that was an area that truly stood out to me and was like, wait a second, this is something I've never heard of, and I need to know more, because what was supposedly supposed to happen in my investment accounts isn't taking place. And that, I think that was one area that really...
There's a slight time delay. It won't be there when the final episode is done, but there's a slight time delay. So I apologize. But you know, we're told, like, there's this conflation between, like, oh, this guy over here makes all this money in the stock market, and it's like a day trader. Like, that's their job, is to trade stocks, and they watch the charts all the time. And so that kind of idea of you can make all this money in the stock market is like casually, not directly, but in a kind of roundabout way, it's conflated with, so therefore you should just buy mutual funds and a tax qualified plan or whatever, right? Like, and you're going to get what this guy has. It's like, that's not that's not correct. Or, you know, this guy got really lucky and he bought, you know, Google before it was big, and all he's had is upside, right, on his Google stock and all this stuff over this huge period of time. And if you want to do that, you should just buy mutual funds. And it's like, wait, again, like, that is not exactly the same thing, or even really close to the same thing. Right? That's my wife always says, you know, the government picks winners and losers in the stock market, so why would I want to play that game, you know? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So and it's not to say you can't, it's not to say you can't put money in the stock market. It's just that that is not the solution to your long-term financial needs, right? I mean, you got to reel me in, Rob, because I'm just going to start talking. I love talking about this stuff. But you know, I mean, that's for me, that's what's so exciting about what we do. You know, it's like, we can show people another way. There's another foundation that you can put in place other than just, you know, taking a deduction, out of your paycheck every week or every 2 weeks or whatever.
And I think that's part of what really stood out to me, is that the mainstream financial system makes it seem as if all these experts have reviewed all that's out there, right? And these are the best ways to make money: mutual funds, you know, or you know, invest with X company or this hedge fund or whatever it is, right? And it's as if, from a financial planning standpoint, it's almost like, it does feel deliberate, especially now that I'm in doing this business, that there's a reason why they don't want you to do it. Because when you go down this path of becoming your own banker and really taking back that financial power and control in your situation, it's done. It does feel like it's done on purpose, because who has the control? He who has the gold makes the rules, is what it said. And when you are using this system, you are building up a system of capital that you have available for the rest of your life. And it can't be touched. And that's the amazing part about it. And it could be used over and over again. Like, that's the part that, when I started to understand it, was so surprising. And it's like, how come no one ever talked about this? No one's ever said anything to me about it. And that's the part that I think was so surprising. And it's like, why couldn't I have found this? And I know I said this to you, and we've heard it from others. Why didn't I know about this 20 years ago? And I mean, knowing what I know now, yeah, I do understand why that's there. Because when you are putting your money into the financial system, you're putting it in somebody else's control. And one other area that I had kind of thought about too is, like, there is a difference between savings and investing and capital accumulation. And so many people don't understand that. We're all sold the idea that 401k is a savings, and it's not. You're quite literally gambling and putting it at risk, and it's all in somebody else's hands. And you're allowing all of those funds to be taxed at a future unknown rate that you don't know about. And I don't know about you, but I don't know when the last time taxes have gone down to the point where I could count on that. And I don't hear anybody talking about taxes on, or cutting your taxes on your future investments at some point in time, and removing that tax. So anyway, I'm kind of getting all over the place too, but yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It's because we have an existing, relationship. We talk often about this kind of stuff. It's easy to jump from one place to the other. And so, if this is the first time that anyone is like getting exposed to kind of the idea, what we do, we're talking about what we do and these ideas. It's the infinite banking concept, right? You mentioned becoming your own banker. You mentioned my book, Between the Lies, and so we're talking about fundamentally, we're using a life insurance policy as a foundation for your financial life. And, specifically a whole life policy, because there's all kinds of people out there telling you to get, stock market based life insurance solutions and all these other things. There's the, right. Let's take what is an extremely insightful and wonderful solution to this problem and make it a problem again, right? Like that's how I see the stock market based life insurance stuff. It's like he had such a good idea, we had such a good thing going, and you just made it bad again. Why did you do that? And so, but what we're talking about is grounded in just basic financial sound principles that have been around for 200 plus years at this point. It's nothing new, it's nothing crazy. It's just that people have more or less forgotten as a culture that this is out there. And so it's kind of cool to be a part of that. I don't know, this isn't a question, Rob, I'm just kind of talking, um, but what is it like? You mentioned you kind of dipped your toe in, and then you have kind of taken a larger step in. And I did the same thing, whenever I first discovered this. And so I guess my thought here is I'm trying to make a question out of this. So, I played around with IBC. We're just going to call it IBC. Okay. The infinite banking concept. I played around with that. I had an agent. I worked with him. I got started, and then I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I got into the industry and all that. And so there's a popular financial entertainer out there named Dave Ramsey who will talk about how the only people that do whole life are the people that are selling whole life policies, right? And so I am proof that that is not the case. I was doing it first, and then I got really excited about it. And so you too did more or less the same thing. Is that right? You just kind of said, wow, this is really, really cool. I want to get more. I want to do this more and talk about this more. Okay.
Yeah, that is absolutely the truth. And, especially with what I had talked about earlier about my background and understanding investing and so on, I had heard the whole, buy term, invest the rest gibberish for a long time. And I didn't, but the thing is just like Nelson has said, most people's understanding of life insurance is based on other people's misconceptions. And that was exactly the same for me because I didn't really understand whole life. And once you do understand whole life, like truly understand it, it has way more in common as a banking system than it ever did with life insurance. In so many ways. I mean, it is life insurance, right? There's no doubt about that. There's an actual death benefit. The death benefit's an important part of it. But in terms of how that capital is utilized and how it can be used, it's unbelievable. The first time I got into it, and this is why I had to do some additional research and reading after hearing your podcast. Like, it was like, is this real? And if it is it legal? And then from there, you're like, okay, this is very legitimate. And as somebody who I love to help people, I really do. It's just a joy to be able to give back to others and help them in some way. And if you have skills that allow you to put them to use and help people at the same time, like, why wouldn't I do that? And, as I, kind of bringing this forward to my journey and where I'm at today too, as I was going through and, beginning to practice becoming my own banker and really understanding it, really gaining some solid knowledge and foundation about it, I'm like, I should help other people do this. It would, one, it would be extremely fulfilling. Two, I would never feel guilty about it like I would if I was in the financial services industry, because I could tell somebody to buy this package of stocks or this mutual fund and it could go up and it could do great, but it could also crash and leave them with nothing. And in this case, like, it's guaranteed to go up. And that gives me a ton of security and being able to do something for others and help others achieve financial independence. And that's just unbelievable to me, that I can have a 100% confidence that it's going to deliver what that person wants, what their goals and their expectations of it might be. We can help deliver that. And that to me alone was such a reassurance that I'm moving in the right direction. This checks all those boxes that I sort of laid out for myself and had if I was going to ever switch careers. And it's not only that, when I'm doing this now, and I still remember this to this day. It sticks out to me. One of our first meetings, and you said to me, like, just feel free to stop me because sometimes I get really excited talking about life insurance. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think he's a little bit crazy. But now I'm the same way. It's exactly the same in that, like, it's so easy to talk about and it's so much fun. And it also, like, I love solving problems. I love to do that for people. And it's hard for people to solve problems when they don't understand what the problems actually are sometimes. And Nelson's book really helps highlight just what those problems are. And was part of the problem. Even it's dwindling for me, but it was part of the problem in my own walk financially, of understanding what those problems are, of your volume of interest you're paying and all of these other things. And, uninterrupted compounding, having my money in a place that's continuing to grow all the time. Again, it's not an investment. It's life insurance. And it's the reason that I think a lot of people shy away from it is, one, the misconceptions, and two, it's not flashy. It's not what some people would say. It's not the sexy new thing out there that they want to be a part of. Is it boring? Maybe to some people, but definitely not to me. Just because of what it does for me and others. So,
I mean, it's like economics, and I'm not going to turn this into an econ thing. Stop me. I'm giving you permission to stop me. But, like, I love economics. I got econ books behind me and all that stuff. And it's a lot of people consider that to be really boring. But man, if you have a grasp for what it actually is, it's not tables of numbers and stuff. Like, that's not the point. You're missing the point if you think that economics is super boring. That's my opinion, right? And so it's like, if you get it, it's like, man, that's awesome to talk about. I talk about that all day. It gets me excited. And yeah, I'm crazy. I'm glad you brought that up. But we're crazy in a lot of other ways in life too. And I like to talk about the ways that we aren't like other families, other people, and this is just one facet of that because, if any of that speaks to somebody, then hey, we're on the same team, man. Like that's a great conversation and I want to talk to that person if they think I'm not completely insane for doing what we're doing. So I don't know. I get to have fun. I joke I get to have fun for a living, but like yeah, it's work, but if you're solving problems and you get to engage with people and materially see over time their life improving, and it's pretty good. Everybody wants a job where they can make a positive impact in the world and all this stuff, right? And there's all these memes and things out there about that. And it's like, yeah, but this is actually what that is. It's not just some abstract idea. It's like literally I'm helping people have a better financial life, have a better ability to cope with the ups and downs of their life, and I get paid. I mean, why wouldn't I wanna do that? That's how I feel about it. And so that's what I'm hearing, from you as well. It's like, I don't know, it doesn't speak to everybody, but if it gets you, if it strikes you, like a snake, if it strikes you, like, then you need to move on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think back though as well, like how did I get here? And I really start to look at that. And I used to think like that I had failed in a lot of areas, in that I, it didn't go well in this, or I didn't do, kind of looking at it just from, a financial perspective, like, oh, well, maybe I'm not a good investor and I should just give my money to somebody else. And that's really the problem. But I think, especially now, and going back to what I had said earlier, just spending a lot of time in prayer of, what I need, looking for guidance, looking for this. I wasn't asking for a silver bullet. That really wasn't it. But when I look at the culmination of all these things that have occurred in my life, I look at it now as it feels as though this is just the direction God was guiding me to. But I had to go through these things so that I could be the best person to help others in those situations that have maybe tried or experienced those same things. It's given me a unique set of experiences to allow me to be able to assist other people in a way that's honest, that's genuine, that is truly in their best interest. And I mean, it is. That's all that I've ever wanted to do, is always do what's in the best interest of anybody I've ever worked with, whether it's been customers or clients or whatever in my career. People that I've led, I've always tried to do what's in their best interest and put that above my own. And that, now that I see it, it's like, okay, one, God listens. Two, he delivers and follows through. But sometimes it's not in the way that you expected. And it's a lot different than what you expect. Because I'll be honest, if you would have told me when I was in what I call like learning mode for investing in my 20s and 30s, if you would have told me that this is what I would be focused on, I would have said, are you sure about that? Because that doesn't compute with everything that I know about it. So, but yeah, it's just amazing how some of that stuff can, really come together and put you in a position to be able to help other people in a unique way. And that's what I'm most excited about, to one, be a part of it. The fact that you were willing to kind of take a chance on me and have me become a part of the team. It's exciting. And like I said, when I said it's absolutely fun for me, it really is. It does not feel like work, because I love it. And I love to solve these problems for other people and help them. And it's just so fulfilling when you're able to do that. And I look forward to when I can dive into that 110%, because I'm not quite there. Like anything good in life, it takes a little bit of time to build. And I have a family to take care of. So I have to manage things a little bit differently, at least to start, but it's getting there and I can see it. It's on the horizon and I'm excited for that to take place.
Yeah, I mean, man, if your attitude towards this stuff really shines through, and I mean that's why you're on the team. Like it's more about attitude than it is about your resume or whatever. And I'm not going to talk about our whole hiring process or any of
Right.
that, but it's it's not about show me your fancy degrees or show me your whatever. I kind of don't care about that. Like in some ways, some of the things, like if you were a successful investment advisor, and IAR, investment advisor representative, and you were, setting up 401k plans for people and all this other stuff, that's kind of a red flag in some ways, because it's like, well, I mean, we're trying to unwind all that. It's it's not that I'm anti stock market, but it's a different perspective. You need to see it from another angle.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you go make money in the stock market after you see it the right way, great. That's fine. I have plenty of clients that make money in the stock market. It's fine. But it's just a little bit of a different thing. And so like your attitude, I mean, really shines through, and it really, I don't have to worry about it. I know you're trying to do the right thing for people all the time. And without you saying any of that, like I can tell, the way the conversations that you and I have had over these last many months now, we've had some really, really good talks about some very like morally defined things. It's like, what is the right way to do this?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to help the person? And like, there's a right answer sometimes,
and
a wrong answer. And somebody who's going to make the wrong choice does not belong on a team, for something like this, right? There's all these regulations and things to try to regulate acting in someone's best interest, and that's just a whole can of worms.
Well, and I think some of the, like, doing the right thing for people sometimes isn't doing anything, and can be, and you have to be willing to do that, and that's not always an easy easy discussion to have with people. But that's what it comes down to. Like I don't want to turn this into a moral discussion about right and wrong, but I mean, it's ultimately, do you want to be treated? Is this how you would want to be treated by someone? And absolutely, that's how I want someone to be transparent and honest and all of those things. But it's when you as you were talking before about the 401k advisor or whatever it is, right? There's 3 times, make sure that's in camera, I almost pulled that trigger to go step into those roles. And a lot of it was because I was being recruited into it. And again, a lot of that was because of my own research. I understood how things worked. But again, it was, I don't know that I can do this, because am I doing the absolute right thing for my customer? And can I sleep with that at night? And that was the big defining difference of why I'm here now and I'm not doing those other things. And I'm so happy that those never happened. Because, anytime there's a recession or the stock market takes a dive, I would be horrified for my clients if that's the case. And I don't have to do that because it goes up every day. Yeah, absolutely.
right? I mean, they're going to call you. Your clients, if you're a investment advisor, your clients are going to call you. What should I do? My portfolio is down 40%, like, and what do you tell them? Like, it's already down. I mean, you can't just go, oh yeah, if we just exercise this extra feature I didn't tell you about, then it's going to only be down 10%, not 40. There's nothing like that. It doesn't work that way, you know? And so, yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. I kind of like that your clients, my clients, we know that the value is going up every day. I mean, you mentioned it before, but it's like you log in tomorrow, it's going to be a bigger number again, and it doesn't go down. It's pretty good. The stock market can swing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there are things that sometimes there'll be a temporary decrease in cash value. Like there's all these technical little details you can get into, and those questions need to be answered and stuff. But it's like in absolute terms, it's going up all the time. And so, unless you tell it not to, and so it's a different thing.
Yeah. And you have the contractual right to do that. And that, I love that aspect of it, right? Like that company is beholden to you before anything else. And it's in that contract written that way. And that's powerful too. When like they have to do this because that's part of the way it's written. That's what everybody signed off on. And yeah, it's that peace of mind that you can do what you need to if the right opportunities come by and you want to now, let's say you've accumulated this cash value and you want to put it to use because there's this great business opportunity or a real estate opportunity. It's there. You have it. And well, at least with the companies I'm with, it's usually there in about 3 days. Once I make that request and there's no questions asked, it's there. And you deploy it, you put it to use. And within 9 months, I was able to completely clear one of my auto loans using the platform. I mean, and then you can redeploy that again and again and again. And then when you do like the actual look at what it costs you and it's next to nothing, you're like, wow, this is better than what I thought it was going to be. And it's how many times can you be involved with something and it's better than what you thought? I can't think of many that I've done in my lifetime where I've put money into something and it ended up being better than what I thought it was going to be. Most of the time, if it meets your expectations, you're happy. But this is exceeding expectations. And it just doesn't happen nowadays. So it's great.
Yeah. I mean, Nelson Nash, in Becoming Your Own Banker, and I hear my rooster crowing, so there's going to be a bunch of rooster action happening now. But in Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson talks about how people are not used to the idea of better no matter what, right? Like always getting better all the time, regardless of what else is going on. People are used to, oh, it's a recession. So therefore, I can't sell out of the stock market. Like I thought I was going to retire, but I'm going to have to wait a few more years or whatever the situation is. They're used to having to go, well, I'm just the low guy on the totem pole. I guess I'll just have to deal until things are better. And that is not what happens here. It's literally always better. And it gets better at a increasing rate, you know? And so it's crazy. And you'd think after all the years now that I've been doing this and talking about this on a basically daily basis, that I would just kind of roll my eyes and go, yeah, that's how it is, and not be so animated. But I get animated about it every dang day because it's so cool. Nothing works that way, right? It just exactly to your point.
Yeah. And I mean, every situation that we come across, any client that we deal with, it's a little bit different problem, but we can solve it. And and the reason we can is because it's just like it says, it's infinite. And it when something's infinite, it means there's infinite possibilities on how to achieve those goals. And that I used to, like, when I first read it and I first got into it, I was like, I don't know if nothing's really infinite, right? But then you start looking at all the unique situations that everybody has, and it's way more than you would ever think. There's a way to solve a problem, and it's amazing that we're able to do it that way. It's truly inspiring, and it's something that I absolutely look forward to anytime there's an opportunity.
Rob, is there a particular place that you would want me to send people after we had this kind of this discussion today? Like, I'm not necessarily wrapping up. I'm going to give you a chance to talk about anything else here in just a second. But other than your page on our website, which is perfectspiralcapital.com, is there another website or location that you'd want to send people to, or just any links to put in the description box below, a favorite video, anything like that?
That's a great question, and one I wasn't necessarily thinking about in advance. I don't know that I necessarily have one particular area. I really don't. It would probably just be, if somebody wants to talk more and just understand more about what we do, they could certainly, find it on the website and set up that time. But I would say in the future, there probably will be, because I am in the process of getting a book published that I wrote, and that takes time. Never thought I would be writing a book. It's not really when I think about all my different skills and all the things that I do, I wouldn't necessarily have said, oh yeah, I want to be an author. I used to,
yeah,
I hated English class. Like I did. And I couldn't stand some of my teachers, and they're like, what was the motif that you pulled out of that story? And I'm like, what are we talking about? Why is that even relevant? So, but here I am writing a book. And I don't have
completion, right? I mean,
it is. Yep, I'm in the formatting stages of the ebook, and then ultimately the paperback as well. So once I get that done, I may have a website that I'll put together for that, but I just don't have it available yet, and I'm still on a working title, so my manuscript is essentially done, but I'm not there yet. So it's exciting, but also challenging and a little scary, because you're putting yourself out there. And I'm sure you felt that when you published yours as well, but you can, you can tell, like, it can be worth it. So
yeah, I mean, look, the whole book thing, becoming a published author, all that stuff. Like, I mean, that's just, that's a whole conversation. That's probably a whole nother episode. That's, a lot there. I mean, when your book is out, if you'd like to do an episode talking about those things, definitely can. But as far as, today's thing, I mean, I just appreciate you walking through the kind of evolution of your thinking with, as it pertains to personal finance and all of that. We could talk all day. We've certainly had some very long Zoom meetings and things before, talking about all these different things, and it's always fun every time, so I'm loath to wrap things up. But is there anything else, I guess, that you were hoping I would get into that we didn't quite get into? Is there any other, like, just words of wisdom, closing thoughts, anything on your mind, Rob?
Great question. I would say that I am grateful in so many ways, for the work that Nelson did with becoming your own banker, at least as applies to this financial focused kind of conversation. But the work that he did, grateful that I've been able to kind of learn the hard way in some ways about how things work, but ultimately it's taught me a great lesson that I can use and share with other people, and they can learn from what I've had to go through, and hopefully avoid it. But I think most importantly, I'm, thankful for and grateful for my family putting up with me, with how focused I've become in this area. And I would say even more than that, I'm just grateful to God for what he's done in my life and really changed my heart, and helped me to see that he cares enough to have like these really abstract plans that ultimately all come together to show that he's there for us. And I think it's nothing short of amazing. It kind of feels like a miracle some days, of where I'm at, and that I also don't feel like I deserve where we've been able to get to. But it's through grace, and it's an awesome feeling knowing that. But yeah, I would say when I don't know that that's necessarily a defined point more than it feels like rambling as I'm speaking, but it's those are the things I'm probably the most grateful for in putting all this, this process together. So yeah, I would probably leave it at that, I guess, and we'll see what happens.
That sounds great. Now, Rob, I really appreciate you getting into all this with me. It's a different setting from our normal kind of just business focused conversation, and so this has been a lot of fun to get to kind of explore these things and hear your perspectives on things, especially me being on a podcast, a different podcast, right? It's a weird kind of like out of body experience a little bit, hosting a podcast, talking about me being on a podcast. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah, I didn't mean to
been a blast.
Throw you way off on that front, but
no. It definitely roll with it, and I had a good time. So, thanks for all your time today. That'll do it for this episode. If you would like to speak more with Rob and learn more about the infinite banking concept and how Perfect Spiral Capital can help with your understanding, education, and interfacing with the idea, seeing how it might unfold in your own life in a very beneficial way, link to speak with Rob will be in the description box below this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening to The Price of Time, hosted by Luke Tatum. Subscribe to us for more episodes. Check the description box below to learn more about our guest. And if you found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend.